So I stand corrected. When Donald Trump was talking about black jobs, I said that Donald Trump was talking about jobs that was in service to them, right? Your maids, your butlers, your cooks, your mechanics, your gardeners. I thought those were the type of jobs that he felt that black people were supposed to be occupying. Black jobs. No, 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 no. In all of his efforts to try to distract from people calling for the release of the Epstein files, Donald Trump called in and did a phone interview and told all of us that he thought the black jobs were picking the fruit out in the fields.
To their country with a pass back in legally, and we're doing things that are very difficult to do and very complex, but it works really well. We're sending them back, and then they're schooling, they're learning, they're coming in legally. We have a lot of that going on, but we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody, these are these people that you can't replace them very easily. People that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried, we've tried, everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it? These are very, in many ways, they're very, very special people. Okay, go ahead.
No, okay.
When Donald Trump says the people who live in the inner city, that's black people. And so when he says the people that are living in the inner city just aren't doing that work, he's talking about black people doing the work of what immigrants were doing in this country. Picking your fruit, picking your vegetables, and they just thought that they were going to get rid of the immigrants and the black people will get back out in the fields. Now they're finding out black people will sleep in the street. Black people will go from pillar to post. Black people will not be going back in those fields. You try to put black people back in those fields, it's going to be a battle of life and death. And so now he's telling this lie that they have deported the people and now they're learning and they're educating and they're coming back in the right way. Are they really? I just saw an article where the United States has cut a deal, made an agreement with Rwanda to take deported immigrants. Imagine that, an African country participating in human trafficking, possibly slave trade activities. Imagine that, an African country. Yeah, so now we're clear. Everybody is on the same page. Black people will not be going back out in the fields. And field work is what Donald Trump thought black jobs were.
Nice, be nice, be nice, even if I don't want to. I'm trying. Y'all, if you hear immigrants, who shows up in your mind? If somebody says, oh, there's immigrants over there, what's going to show up in your mind? Now, we know you wasn't thinking that, but there you go.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm hoping that you're doing great from wherever you watch me from. I'm your host and presenter G Stories. There's something that I want to talk about and something that is really happening. And you can see the desperation that these people have towards black people, and this shows you that nothing can run without black people. And you'll agree with me in this sense because, look, even when you try to look at history, the United States, the world, people benefited from black labor. And as everything that you see shining today in the United States, a price was paid behind it. And you might want to know who paid this price. It is black ancestors. These are the people that paid the price. And they paid the price with their blood, with their sweat, to make the United States what it is today and what we are seeing today. And since these people are used to black labor, and the United States laws and rules changed, and now there was abolition of slavery, and now that was, what we called a free labor, like you could work and be paid and you are free, right? And a lot of black people started seeing that it doesn't make sense because of the poor wages that they were being given. And now they decided not to work for white people. And now white people resorted to take immigrants, Latinos, majority of them, that recently we saw ICE raids are taking them out of the United States. So this is what happened. What happened is that Mr. Donald Trump is right now trying to find Africans who can work inside the farm. I'd honestly say that this is a fail because he tried that with South Africans. Weeks later, turned out that these people could not work in these places. And what really happened is that all of these shows you that really the world depends on black people. Black people are the backbone of everything. The United States today is seen as one of the major superpowers. But if you try to look at the history of the United States, we have black veterans who also stood up for the United States to make it what it is today. What some people consider it as one of the superpowers or one of the current, one of world biggest, continents. So that being said, I want to start this video. I hope you find value in the commentaries that I give. But until then, let me see you at the end of it. I will have a critical discussion about these factors. Just a question, just a please, sorry. If you're watching me for the first time, I'm asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join my membership, and really get to see what I can offer you. But until then, let's watch the video. I'll be back.
Okay, just hold that. In a recent CNBC interview, Trump refers to undocumented farm workers, primarily of Hispanic descent, as people who naturally are suited for intense labor, like farm work. He claimed that these individuals don't just do the work, like it naturally comes to them, like they don't need no guidance. It's just like programmed, basically. That's not his words, but I'm saying, right? He says, so they saying they basically got strong backs, and if they stop working the farm, they'll die. These are very, very special people. Straight toxic. These remarks did not single out people specifically in the Spanish era. This is what they want you to believe. But rather undocumented immigrants. Who did you see when I say immigrants? I just stabbed myself with my nails. Who did you see, y'all?
I'm about to play some audio for you all. And the audio is of the President of the United States talking about the natural design of undocumented workers. And I want you to tell me in the comment section, where have you heard this kind of talk before? And what exactly is he saying out loud? You can't make this up.
Going on, but we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody. These people. You can't replace them very easily. People that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried. We've tried. Everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. Naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it? These are very, in many ways, they're very, very special people. Okay, go ahead.
No, okay, so.
These people. Sounds like some of the stories my grandmother used to tell me, how they were referred to when they were sharecroppers. These people. How the generation before hers, when they were slaves. And a lot of you all are just sitting there pretending like you don't hear this. I'm going to leave this right here. And you tell me in the comment section, what you heard, because I know what I heard. Y'all have the day you deserve. And may the ancestors judge you all who are turning a deaf ear to this accordingly.
I'm going to say that our President Trump was on Fox today crying about he made a mistake sending all them immigrants away. Did he say he made a mistake deporting all them immigrants? Yeah. Did he say the farmers were going to be suffering and who was going to tend the fields out there? Did he actually think, who he thought was going to do it? The African-American people? Oh, we won't do that no more. We won't do that no more. I got people that own businesses. I got people that sell t-shirts, sell purses, sell everything. I got people that own stores. You know, we don't do that anymore. I even heard that he said what would happen to the, I think he was talking about the immigrants like working and they back, because it's back-breaking work. So he was like, what would they do if their back was broke? What would they do? They say they'd die, because if their back ain't working, they ain't no good. You know, we don't do that anymore. We don't tend to fields and stuff. And I tell you something else you figured out. You figured out when you start raising the price on these vegetables and all that stuff, because we know how to, you know, raise crops and stuff. A lot of us started growing our own vegetables. Here, one of my coworkers bought me some squash and okra the other day. You know what I'm saying? So you can't stop us. But I tell you one thing, I want to know what black person, African American person finna get out in the field and pick cotton, pick peas, pull apples and all that stuff. You damn right, you better get them immigrants back if you know what's good for you, and go ahead and give them their rights to make them legal. If I was them immigrants, I wouldn't come back to your ass, give me my legalized paperwork right when I get on that bus or that ship or whatever you got for them. Give me my paperwork ASAP. And you need to hurry up and get them back, because I'm mad anyway. We need some work done at the house, and they damn good workers. They damn good workers. They can do some good stuff around your house, and they don't charge you that much. They do a damn good job. Stuff that people like, you know, my people, we don't do that no more. We just don't do that no more. We just don't do that no more. You think them folks stand in line with Jordans on, stand in line to buy a pair of $300 shoes to put on to go work in a field? Do you really? Do you think them people go buy $3,000 purses, Louis Vuitton bags, Gucci and all that stuff to go work in the field? No, we don't do that no more. Bottom line is, get them immigrants back that you deported. Make them legal, when they come back. And then get them more money for what they was doing before they left. Because you know damn well they deserve it. Because you have seen, you done effed around and found out that you done seen that your plan was going to fall to pieces. Because you thought African Americans was going to go back to what they was doing back in the day. This ain't back in the day. This ain't back in the day. I don't need no 40 acres and a mule, because my mama picked cotton so I didn't have to. You understand me? And I'm damn proud of it. I don't need no 40 acres and a mule, because I'm set up now that I can do what I need to do, and I don't have to pick cotton, peas, and all that stuff. So how dare you think that them immigrants was going to go back and we was going to take their spot? That's what you thought, but it backfired in your face. Don't let them people come back over here so I can get some work done in my house. Thank you.
So Donald Trump, not in these exact words, but basically admitted this week that a lot of the things that he's been doing, a lot of the policies, a lot of the executive orders that he's been signing off on was all made with the intention of getting black people back into the field. It was made with the intention of getting black people back into the field. All right, so on Tuesday, Donald Trump made an appearance, right, on CNBC's Squawk Box. And on that platform, he actually made a lot of commentary in regards to the situation with the deportations, migrant workers, the state of America's agriculture, and he made comments on inner city people not doing farm work. I want you to always remember that when they mention inner city, that means black. In Donald Trump's exact words, people that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They've tried. We've tried. Everybody tried. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. They don't get a bad back, because if they get a bad back, they die. He also went on to say that they are very, very, very special people, and they cannot be easily replaced. Remember what I said, anytime that they mention the words inner city people, inner city communities, inner city neighborhoods, that's black. That's code for black. Blackity black, okay? Black people. And it is because of that exact commentary that it reconfirms for me, okay? Not confirms, but reconfirms, meaning that I already knew. But it reconfirms that the plan from the very beginning with these executive orders, right, was to further destabilize black communities, further destabilize poor communities, but black mainly, so that you could put pressure on these communities so that you could get them to go back into the field, right? And then once you get them back in the field, bingo, you've made America great again. Modernize slavery. But black people said, fuck you and this little game that you want to play. Since we are the most valuable player on the scoreboard, we will remove ourselves and let's see if this game is still going to continue. And that's in fact what we're seeing right now. Donald Trump thought that by forcing all of these other people out, taking away our Medicaid, doing all of these things to further destabilize our community, that we would conform, that we would just do what he wants us to do, what the whites of this world, what white supremacy wants us to do. But black people decided to pull a Uno reverse and they did nothing, which is something that they're not used to black people doing. They're used to black people having this spirit of rebellion, having this spirit of revolution. But instead, black people decided that, you know what, I'm going to preserve my energy for me and my people, but I'm also going to remove myself from this game entirely. And now everything is starting to crumble. The way that the America agriculture is taking a huge hit right now because of Donald Trump and his deportations. Like, I don't think that you understand how much America survives off of the labor of undocumented workers. And when I say y'all, I mean all the other races. Black people knew, because black people were telling you. They told you, don't do this. Don't do this, because we're not going back in the field. Don't do this, but y'all didn't listen. And just to put into retrospect of how important undocumented migrant workers are to the agriculture economy here in America, the U.S. Department of Agriculture reports that roughly 42% of crop workers are undocumented, with nearly 70% being foreign-born. This labor is essential in states like California and Texas, where up to 80% of farm workers lack legal status. Donald Trump signed off on a lot of these executive orders back in January. It is now August, and in between that time, he has done a parade of chaotic shit, trying to put pressure on the black community, but the black community has refused to fold. They have not folded. And it's not just the black community, but the legal Hispanic community here, the legal Latinos here, the Browns, and every other race that sees what this administration has been trying to do from the very beginning. They have not folded. And because of that, everything that he has signed off on in January is starting to bite him in the ass in August. And to all of you people out there that had so much to say in regards to the black community and the 92% and them actually deciding to stand down and not participate, to not get involved, to protect their peace, all of the critiques that you had on their decision, let this be your example. Let this be your primary example as to why you should stay the fuck out of black people business. Stay the fuck out of black people business. You had so much to say in regards to our decision and wanting to stand the fuck back and deciding to remove ourselves from this entire game altogether, right? Now, you see that black people actually knew what the fuck they were doing. They knew what the fuck they were doing. They told you were going to need these people because they weren't doing it anymore. They told you they wasn't going to do it anymore. You still got rid of them people. You still got rid of the migrants. You still did and went through with the mass deportations, and now you guys want food. But you thought that the black people was going to get into the field. No, they wasn't going to do it. They wasn't going to do it. They wasn't going to do it. And now you see why they decided from the very beginning, oh, I see how this is going to play out. Exit stage left.
See, this is the reason right here that you do not go out and vote and put people in an office whose thinking is dated over 50 years ago. You don't put people in office who doesn't have the mentality to move with the times. You don't put people in offices who do not have the ability to look outside of themselves and think in a diverse way to deal with a diverse community. When you have one way of thinking, when you have one mindset, you can only move in one direction. It ain't forward. Well, you're backwards thinking president. All of a sudden now, it just dawned on him that maybe he shouldn't have deported all those immigrants. Yeah, now he says he regrets. Yeah, now he regrets deporting all those immigrants. Because, see, the people in the inner cities, and we know who he's talking about, the people in the inner cities are not going to do the job. And we can't leave our farmers out here not having anyone to help them and work their farms. What you might have wanted to have that thought process. Let's say before 50%, I think it's 50% of farmers in Nebraska have filed bankruptcy in the last 6 months. You might want to have that thought process before all those people, you know, lost their farms and their cattle farms and, you know, and their businesses, you know, housing and, you know, all kind of other areas. Because the immigrants were scattered out through every facet of work here in this country. But now he doesn't think that was such a good idea. This is what y'all put in office. This is your choice and skills at work. Why should anybody ever take any type of advice, guidance, suggestions from you? Why should we? Why would we? Look at what you did. Evidently, your thought process, I can see right now, would be in no way helpful or of some type of benefit to me. So, Trump voters, it ain't nothing y'all can say to me about nothing. Your advice, I don't trust it. Look what you did. This is what you believe in. This is who you put in power to come into this country and do the things that he's done. The farmers are going belly up. All kind of businesses are going out of business. Small businesses. And it's being said now that Ford and GM is on the brink of closing. That Ford will lose a total, I think it was $2 billion in revenue because of these taxes. So Ford is on the brink of shutting down. GM is on the brink of shutting down because of the person y'all went into that booth and pushed the button for that ignited all of this destruction. And now he wants to go, maybe he shouldn't have. Well, you know what? Who would want to come back over here? Because that's what you say today, but then people don't know what you're going to do tomorrow. You done showed your true self. Why would anybody even come back to this country? I mean, really, why would you? When a person shows you who they are, believe them. And we, as a country, have showed these people who we are. And they need to believe us. Because if the only way you become valuable, if the only way you become, if you earn the right to be treated like a decent human being, if that only reason is your purpose is here is to put money in their pocket, I don't think that's sufficient enough. I mean, really, as long as you put money in my pocket, you can stay here. Long as you put money in my pocket, then, you know, you ain't got to worry about being snatched up off the streets and thrown and or, you know, flew out to other countries that you've never been in your whole life and sent to the worst prisons there is on earth. And that's where they're. Why would you come back to that? Why would you? Why would you ever trust this country again? And how was he supposed to get these immigrants back? some of them, it's being rumored that there are bodies washing up on the, well, it's not being rumored, there are bodies washing up on the shores that are shackled together. And that some of the planes, those big cargo planes with the back can drop down, they go off radar when they get to a certain point over the ocean. So it's being, let's just say it's being thought that they're going out there and they're throwing people off those planes and they're throwing them in the ocean. Because many bodies have been washing up on the shores and they're shackled together. I'm just waiting to see what they're going to do when they if they can trace where these people come from. And therefore, remember when they were scrubbing all the information out of the systems, the data systems and stuff? That was so they couldn't trace anybody. They couldn't trace any of these immigrants. All of this is because of Trump voters. And now he is talking about he regrets it. Don't nobody care what you regret now that the destruction is done. But I guess now the immigrants are just supposed to run back and say all is well now. But that seems that, that's what they're going to expect, the farmers and the Trump voters. They're going to expect these people to come back and work and make them money as if nothing happened. Because, see, their well-being is the most important thing. Reminds me of this letter. I saw a video about this letter that made the newspaper way back in the day in slavery when the slaves were freed. And after they had went and settled elsewhere, that the slave owners were tracking them down and sending them letters begging them to come back. And there was one particular farmer that this letter was about. The video had Larry Fishburne reading the letter. The letter made the newspaper. This plantation owner tracked down his, I guess he was like the foreman over the land, and he was begging him in a letter to come back, promising he would treat him better, he would do right by him and yada yada yada, right? Well, of course, the man wound up. Bottom line is the slave the free man now wound up turning them down. And do you not believe that to this day, the descendants of that man, the property owner, the slave owner, the descendants of that man is still mad at that slave because he wouldn't come back and help that man because he didn't know how to run his own land, and he wound up going broke and having to sell that place for pennies on the dollar. And his descendants holds the ex-slave accountable and at fault for him losing his farm. See what I mean? It's that expectation, baby, that they expect it all. That's what you got.
Hey guys, it's Leash. Listen, your president, not mine, has decided that he is going to reverse this whole deportation situation and is suggesting that people come back to America to work these farms and everything. Not saying sorry, not acknowledging that what he did was probably one of the most horrific things you could do to people and families, children, tearing families apart or anything. No, he is basically saying that, the farmers here need help. And so they're going to educate them, get them legally sent back to this country to do the work that he thought the folks in the inner city would have been able to do. Clearly, if you read between those lines, he thought that black people were...
Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the channel. Well, I'm hoping that you're doing great from wherever you watch me from. I'm your host and presenter, G Stories. Now, remember, as I said earlier, the world, especially the United States, really depend on black people And this really means that majority of things that today we see shining, that today we see like they're great, you need to understand that there was a price that was paid. And a price was paid for this to happen. And when this happened, now the credits are not being given to black people. But at the end of the day, you see all this scarcity of people working in black farmers' labor. People working in these farms really made it make sense for these people, because at the end of the day, they came to realize that they really depended on black people. And if something happens today, they'll go back and depend on black people for all their successes, for all their farm labor. And this shows you how the world really has revolved. I've been revolving around black folks. And I had a presentation in regards to this that I want us to talk about. When you talk about economic dependence and vulnerability of white farmers, and this is vividly, and everyone sees this, when these farms lose their primary labor force, production slows or stops entirely. Agricultural work in the US is intensive, seasonal, and physically exhausting. Without willingly workers, crops rot in the field, revenue plummets, and there is a ripple effect towards this. And when all these things happen, that shows you that people really depend on black labor. People really depend on black people. This shows that even in the sectors where black workers have historically been undervalued, their absence can paralyze operations. It's an economic wake-up call for those who thought they could replace black labor without consequence. Also, another thing that I'd like to address is Trump's push for African labor. Donald Trump's reported desire to bring in workers from Africa to fill these farm jobs reveal a deep contradiction. He has often promoted restrictive immigration policies, particularly against African and Caribbean nations. But when U.S. citizens, especially black Americans, refuse exploitation, it turns to the very nation he once demeaned. This isn't about valuing African workers. It's about replacing an uncompliant labor force with another group perceived as more desperate and therefore easy to exploit. And that's what's really happening, and this is what you need to understand. And that's why I think it turned back to African laborers, because these are desperate people, and they know that these are a group of people that honestly needs it. So when it happened, I really came from a point of exploitation, because black people cannot work as they thought. It's not that black people are lazy or something, but black people don't want to work for these people for free, because ain't nothing for free. Because the amount of wages that they are ready to give black folks, it's almost like it's free, right? Because it's so minimum. And this shows you how these people are rooting for black people in different parts of the world. There is a pushback against this idea for several reasons. And first is importing African workers under such arrangements can mirror modern day indentured servitude. Yes, I'll call that human trafficking, because you are exploiting these people with the promise of changing their future, with the promise of, making them look like they're making it big. Well, everyone is knowing that the United States that we are seeing today is not the same United States that was there before. At least the name still remains the United States, but you get to realize that things are not the same. Things are changing over time. And now, this is indentured servitude. This is a contract. And this is what they're doing to all these African laborers that they're trying to bring back to this country. And, this will spark people to talk, because at the end of the day, it's been about a black person. Every problem that happening, they thought that it's a black person that's it's having a solution to the problem. Why are not they seeing other races? They're always just seeing black people as the solution for all the problems that they are going through. This will lead to indentured servitude, where migrants are tied to exploitative contracts. and have few labor protections. Second, it can pit African immigration against Black Americans, fostering division within the wider Black diaspora. Yes, that's also another point to talk about. This divide and conquer strategy has been historically used to keep oppressed groups from uniting against systemic exploitation. And that's just one of the realities that I think we need to talk about. One of the realities that we need to address. What are the lessons? What are the lessons from history that we can learn from this? This is not something new. Remember that during Reconstruction and the Jim Crow era, when Black sharecroppers began demanding better treatment, white landowners turned to immigrant labor, Italians, Mexicans, and others who were often bought in under poor working conditions. Similarly, when Black industrial workers organized for fair wages in the North, factory owners imported European immigrants to undercut their bargaining power. This same logic is being applied here. Find a cheaper, more valuable workforce instead of addressing the root causes of labor shortages. And that's how they did it. That's how they made this work. It's always about cutting costs. It's all about creating division. And that's why they want these Black people to do all these things for them. The myth of jobs Black Americans want to do. Yeah, I think in this line, we also need to address that, because this is how they are using this against Black Americans to make them feel like they're the villains here, that the ones who don't want to put in work, right? A frequent talking point is that Black Americans do not want to work these jobs. But the reality is they won't do them for poverty wages and mistreatment. And I've been saying this for a while now. But the reality is that they won't do them for poverty wages and mistreatment if these farms offered fair pay, safe conditions, and respectful treatment. The labor shortage will shrink. The refusal to work is not about rejecting hard work. It's about rejecting exploitation. The fact that white farmers will rather import workers than improve conditions show that maintaining control and cheap labor is more important to them than fairness, right? What's the global implication of African labor export? If Trump or any future administration starts importing large numbers of African laborers for these roles, it could also impact African nations. Many African governments are already pressured to send workers abroad for remittances. While this can bring money back home, it also risks brain drain and exploitation abroad. To add on top of that, these African workers would likely face the same racism and mistreatment that Black Americans are resisting now, only without the legal protections or community networks to defend themselves. Talking about Black economic power and the silent resistance, this situation brings about something powerful. Remember, collective refusal is a form of economic upset. By simply not showing up to work in hostile environments, Black Americans are forcing the agricultural sector to confront its dependence on them. This is a quiet but potent form of resistance. It doesn't require marches or speeches, just the withholding of labor. And now, in doing so, they are demonstrating leverage in a system that only tries to make them feel powerless. Right? They're trying to do this to make the people who are working in these places to make feel powerless. And when Black people demonstrate this, they're trying to tell you that we have the power and it's not you. Lastly, I would like to talk about the bigger picture in all this. The conflict over who works on America's farms isn't just about agriculture. It's about power. It's about economics and racial dynamics. If white farmers and political leaders like Trump keep looking for ways to bypass black labor. Instead of improving working conditions, they'll keep reinforcing cycles of exploitation, only changing the nationality of the exploited. But if this moment forces America to acknowledge the true value of black labor and the need for fair treatment, it could spark a shift towards equitable labor systems. Whether that happens depends on whether the country sees this as a labor shortage or a problem or a justice problem. So really, we could talk about this and talk about this and talk about this, but at the end of the day, I know that we know the truth. Black people have been running this for a while now, and it's so powerful. And black people need to know that they are powerful. Oftentimes they are made to feel like they are less, but black people are powerful. So really, let me know what you think about this video. Again, I'm your host and presenter Introductory Stories. But until then, let me see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.